Okay, so this week's review is of Falls Road Golf Course in Potomac, Maryland. This is a Montgomery County course. I wanted to take a look at it, and we did get that final, hopefully, snow of the year in that weekend. And also, I needed to get some grips changed on a couple of my clubs. And I finally had a chance to go down and kill two birds with one stone. So went down there, checked it out. And it was closed that day. The course was closed that day, but the clubhouse was open. So I got the grips changed there. They did them for me in 5 minutes, and it cost almost nothing. It was $8 for the grips plus, I think, the $5 for the change fee, or they threw in the change or something like that. And it was a great deal. Got to recommend it for that alone. And the course, for one thing, there's a couple of holes there where Falls Road goes right by the course. And I knew that was going to be a factor, but wasn't really surprised for the letdown that I felt when I pulled into the parking lot. It's a nice clubhouse, and they have a nice driving range there and everything. But if you look at what you can see from the parking lot is not that impressive. I mean, it's just, I think there's a couple of greens there and a fairway, number 10 fairway. You can see the number 9 and number 18 greens you can see, and it's just not impressed. A lot of netting. The truth is, the course is actually not bad. I would say it's great, but I would say it's not bad. It's certainly, a decent course. And most of the course is behind a hill that you can't really see from the parking lot and from the clubhouse. And so when you go back and after you play the first hole, between the first and ninth hole, there's actually a pretty decent course. It's not, great, but it's certainly above the level of courses like Glendale and Blue Heron and courses like that. It's I would say a middling course. Certainly have played worse courses. A lot of better courses in the area, but it's certainly not a bad course. It's if compared to like 16th Street. Although that course does have its redeeming features, and in a sense, I like it in some ways better than I like the course at Falls Road. And in some ways, the course at Falls Road is certainly better than the course at 16th Street. I wouldn't say it's the kind of course that you'd find at Hains Point at all. It's not a big, long, flat course with lots of landing space and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's not a tight, heavily wooded lanes kind of course where if you hit the ball out of the fairway and more than 20 yards off the fairway, you have no chance of finding the ball. And it's not like that at all. I think it's a sort of intermediate course, along the lines of a smaller version of maybe Hoppins Glen or a course like that. I can certainly, Worthington Manor, for instance. A smaller version of Worthington Manor, I would call it. And while it had regular grass on the greens, the one thing I have to say absolutely disappointing was it suffered from that really crippling problem of having aerated greens and putting the emphasis on aeration of the greens. The greens were very fast. Certainly, even for the fact that it just snowed and the greens were still wet in places. Very fast, decent amount of slope, but no break. And it was really crazy to try to putt on greens like that. And if it wasn't for the fact that out of the foursome I played with, two of the guys really didn't have a lot of problems with it. They were making putts. I didn't make a putt until the third green, and 4 putted the first green and 3 putted the second. And finally, got a putt on the third green and started making a few putts here and there. But constantly having to play the fact that I'm used to putting fast greens in a completely different way than they had to play them here. This was a course where you have fast greens, but you had to putt straight at the hole, and then sure enough, if you try to putt a lag or you putt slow, as you get closer to the hole, the ball would break 4 or 5 inches away from the hole. The closer you got to the hole, the slower you putted, the more the ball would break right next to the hole. It almost never went straight, and you pretty much had to jam the putts in the hole. So if you were a good enough putter to do that, let's say, where you're 20 feet away and you aim straight at the hole and you hit the hole, great. If you didn't hit the hole, ball's going 10 feet past, and you're playing this back and forth stuff. And it really does put an emphasis on jamming the putts in the hole, which I thought was a downside. Unquestionably, that is not the way most putting is done on most greens. And I, was able to see, watching the four of us putt, balls bouncing up in the air, balls, in the slots, where between the aeration ridges, definitely the corduroy pattern where the ball is, going a certain way and then suddenly veers off to the left or veers off to the right, 45 degrees as it gets into another track and goes off that way. And it wasn't helping that it was a little bit windy, and certainly any influence would cause the ball to skitter off or slide offline. So I would say it was a 10% course in terms of the putting on the greens, but it was a decent course in terms of having enough length. There were holes, par fours between 350 and 450 yards, par fives up the 500-yard range, and the par threes were decently long, somewhere between 150 and 200 yards from the back tees. We played from the back tees, and it was a long enough course to stretch my game. There was no, I would say, shortage of length in terms of this course. It wasn't a long course, but it wasn't short either. And also it had quite a bit of verticality. There were quite a number of elevated tees. I'd say most of the greens were elevated. They weren't small at all. They had a fair amount of waste. It was nice to see waste in play in the fairway and around the backside of the green. Certainly a number of the greens had waste within 20 or 30 yards of the green. So not too tight, not too loose, not too small. Sort of a nice, comfortable size course. Although there were quite a few houses around the course, and especially when we're playing in April and the leaves aren't out, you do see a number of houses around the course, and it wasn't, I would say, anywhere near isolated, but it wasn't overwhelming with houses. I really didn't think it was the kind of course that I would want to play, but I had to grudgingly admit it was a decent course. Now, my other problems with the course were it was $40 on a Saturday without a cart, okay? The day that I played, like I said, the day after snow was kind of melting, and I haven't seen a course like this in a long time where they worried about the course so much they wouldn't even let you have a cart on cart path only. They made us walk this course, and it's not a flat course. It has a pretty significant degree of verticality, and you're walking around and around and up and down and around and around, and, walking around chasing your balls. And it was not something where if you're used to riding a cart, it was not something trivial to deal with in terms of walking this course. The clubhouse was barely open. They had a decent snack bar and a decent dining area, but there was no one staffing there. So there was, all they had was vending machine food, donuts and coffee and candy bars and drinks like that. But they had no one back there to take your money. So you had to go back to the pro shop to pay for everything. So in highlight, I guess I would say, taking things from just off the top of my head, the greens, number one, while they were in good condition in terms of the surface condition of the course, not really marked up and not patchy. There certainly weren't any dead areas on the greens. I think, again, it suffered from an overemphasis on grass condition to the point where the grass condition was actually bad. There was a corduroy surface on just about all the greens. Sometimes it was, just ridiculous corduroy, and the greens were just too ruined with aeration to really putt. And okay, fine. It was March, April, but at the same time, I think this course in the spring or summer or fall, when the weather is really good, will have just too many people playing it. It really does seem like a course that's going to be just too busy during the season to really be a comfortable course to play. I think it has a little bit too much open space. It's a little bit too easy to go out there and find your ball if you put a ball in an adjacent fairway. While there is some waste, there is some parts of the course where you do see waste in woods and water and so forth. I think it's also a little bit too easy to find balls if you don't hit in play. And it has enough length. Certainly, it has a good amount of verticality. It has a good amount of waste around the greens. It has a lot of the features of a decent course, but at the same time, I would say it's lacking in some of the common areas that courses are lacking in. You know, just a lot of houses around the course, a lot of traffic, a lot of cars going by, and a lot of potential for people. It's kind of jammed in, and it's a decent course, but it's jammed into a small amount of space, and it seems like it can be really busy. But at the same time, I think it's a decent course, and I'd have to give it at least a B-, honestly. So I would say the one thing that really I didn't like, and to me this is weird because I've played much better courses that have the same problem, having the greens that are ruined by aeration, and they grow up and they're not properly taken care of. They're sort of left to languish until they get around to making them good greens again by mowing them flat. You know, having that corduroy kind of feel on the greens due to aeration and then recovery from aeration, and just ruining what could have been good greens if they hadn't aerated them, you know, so and left them to just grow up unchecked. Now, that to me takes putting pretty much out of the equation, but I don't think that was the really big problem with this course. I think the big problem with it was it's almost like it tried to do too much in too little of a space. There were too many things going on. There were too many little issues that just kind of added up. It kind of added up and up and up and up and up. And it didn't help that, you know, there was no cart. The cart paths were not complete, for one thing. So sometimes you saw the cart path and sometimes you didn't. Sometimes, you know, that was a big thing, I think, really, because I don't think this is the kind of course I'd want to walk more than once. Certainly, again, let's put it that way, much less, you know, even with a pull cart. It's too vertical to really walk comfortably. And we walked it. It was, you know, 50 degrees. I can imagine it's 70, 80 degrees, 90 degrees and walking this course for 18 holes. So that's one thing. Just a lot of little stuff, a lot of little things. It certainly was okay, but not comfortable, not fun, just okay. And I'm really grudgingly giving it a decent grade because I know that if you focus on the golf, it's a decent course. It's certainly a challenge, and it's not like you're going to go out there and be bored playing it. I just think it's annoying to play. It's just not the environment, not the kind of environment, and not the upkeep. Certainly, a lot of the sand traps were under repair. The back nine, they didn't have a rake on any of the sand traps, and just little tiny stuff, you know. Just it was a decent course done poorly, I would say. The way it was just managed and run, and to open the course and have one or two guys there, and it's just, you know, lots of people. It wasn't like jam-packed, but it wasn't empty either. There were a lot of people there. There were a fair number of people there playing the course, and a fair number of people, you know, to driving range, fair number of people coming to the clubhouse. And it just, to me, it sucks to have a course with a lot of people there, but you can't bring someone there to serve food. You can't bring someone there to serve drinks. You can't bring someone else there to work a second register. I mean, it's just kind of nonchalant, you know, if not disrespectful to the clientele. You have a nice big clubhouse area with a nice, you know, set of tables and a TV there showing the golf. And then, you know, you don't have anyone working there to do anything. You come in after your round and it's like locked up. You got to walk all the way around the front to come back in. It just not the environment that I want to reward with my patronage. But sure, if you ignore those things, it was a decent course. And I certainly can think of worse courses than this. Without question, there are 10, 15 courses I can think of in the DC area that are worse courses. Without question, the course itself was a good challenge of golf, okay? It absolutely passed that threshold of being a good challenge of golf. No doubt about it, okay? So rewarding that part of it, a B minus. But in terms of the greens, the staffing, the little things like the fact that it's pretty much 3/4 of the course is surrounded by roads, cars, going by, of course there was some idiot who had to go by the course and honk his horn. Of course there was some idiot who had to stop while we're going up the fairway and throw a rock at a road sign next to the course. Just stupid shit. Just asinine, jackass stuff that's kind of commonplace in DC. Unnecessary bullshit. And I really didn't have a good feeling about playing the course. I was really kind of glad, not to mention having to walk it, having to walk the course because it's wet and they don't want people to ride carts. Seriously? I mean, it on the course at all? Not at all. Not at all. Or because they didn't want to bring the staff there to manage the carts. Just juvenile, juvenile stuff. Arrogant, like, we know people are going to come here anyway. It doesn't matter how bad we run the course. Doesn't matter how bad the greens are. It doesn't matter how bad the environment is. We know people are going to play this course anyway, kind of stuff. I didn't feel good about that at all, and I would really hate to reward this course with my patronage after that. And it's going to be worse when the weather gets better. And there will be people there, and the course is going to be swamped. It. And it's going to be $50, $60, maybe even $70 a round to play that course on the weekends. That's just too much, too many people, too much nonsense, too much crap, all that kind of stuff. I'm glad I got this course in when I played it. I can just imagine it being so much worse. But sure, the golf, not bad, okay? Not bad, certainly. I'll give it a B minus, and good luck with it. That's Falls Road Golf Course in Potomac, Maryland.